You shout like that, they put you in jail. Right away. Right to jail. Right away.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is, you know what, never mind. This guy. I have a secret. I hate pro wrestling, meaning that I am obsessed with this absolute pile of nonsense. For the longest time, I didn't watch it, whether it be WWE, the Lucha Libre in Mexico, or people beating the absolute tar out of each other in Japan. Although I did briefly try AEW before giving that up as well. During that time, I wasn't watching, but I still paid attention to what was happening, because you want to know what the really interesting thing about a rigged sport where two people pretend to hurt each other while they're in their underwear? It's the egotistical, narcissistic backstage drama by the people in their tighty whities. It is absolutely insane how every single one of them thinks so highly of themselves. I cannot stop watching the chaos and drama. It's amazing. And because I was paying attention to the background foolishness, I was aware of when Vincent Kennedy McMahon was outed from his own company in 2022 because of accusations by a paralegal. And no, I will not be saying the names of any victims. I respect their privacy, so I'm just going to call her the paralegal for now. For the first time in 40 years, the 70-year-old gremlin wasn't in charge of the largest wrestling promotion in the world. Back then, I didn't think much of it, even when he forced his way back in 2023, sold the company, and was halfway outed again by the new owners. But in 2024, everything changed that made me pay attention. Perhaps the most horrendous, evil, and unforgivable accusations came out in the lawsuit against McMahon from the paralegal. This is stuff that even the most creative people in the world could not conceive. There isn't any way to even joke about what is brought up in the lawsuit. Vince McMahon allegedly shattered this woman, breaking her down and building her up into his alleged, I guess slave would be the correct term. And based on the reports from the victim's lawyer, there are plenty of other women reaching out with their own alleged horror stories. A vast majority of those are probably true, allegedly, which I keep saying because I don't want to be sued as well by anyone involved in this. And I have no doubt that there will be many more horror stories to come. And in response to all this, the new owners TKO yeeted Vince McMahon out of the company for good with no way to get back in. The company that he bought from his own father 40 years ago. Born to Vince Sr., the younger McMahon was raised by his mother and stepfather, who did not seem to treat him well. In fact, stories make it seem like it was a horrible childhood. Out to prove himself, Vince Jr. started working for his father and eventually bought the company, renaming the WWF into the WWF, and then into the WWE after having a legal tussle with the World Wildlife Fund. Yes, McMahon has been sued a lot.
I declare bankruptcy!
Because of his uncontrollable ambition, narcissism, and need to control everything, McMahon worked to drive every other wrestling company in the United States out of business, because back then there were many different smaller wrestling territories instead of one giant company. And McMahon was successful for the most part until he got to the second biggest promotion, WCW. The two companies waged open war on television, trying to outdo each other and put each other out of business. And this is where Vince's story becomes far more open to the public. You see, there's a thing in pro wrestling called kayfabe. It's where the storylines and personalities involved in the ring are supposed to match up with what people see and believe in real life. So bad people or heels are supposed to be bad in everyday life. Same thing with the good characters or the baby faces. Originally, kayfabe was sacred in pro wrestling. If someone broke character in public, they would be banished from the industry. It's fascinating stuff. And what's more fascinating is that Vince McMahon is the one who shattered it. Originally, McMahon was supposed to be a commentator on television while he secretly controlled everything in the back. But that changed in the 90s when McMahon took real-life controversies and ran with it on television, becoming the evil boss Vince McMahon on screen. Except, here's the thing, Despite kayfabe being broken for the sake of Vince classifying wrestling as entertainment instead of a sport, to save money of course, this might be the case of a wrestling character perfectly matching the person involved. Throughout the course of his time playing the evil boss, the character of Vince McMahon did many horrendous things. Fire people for no reason, such as sneezing, publicly embarrassing his wrestlers, making them kiss his ass. Yes, this is true, there was even a club. He made women dance almost naked for him, act like dogs for him, and basically become his slaves. Having borderline incestual storylines with his daughter. Having his real-life wife be in a coma where she watched helplessly as he cheated on her and abused her, and for some odd reason, having poop rain from the heavens and cover people head to toe in feces. And no, I am not making any of this up. Does any of this sound familiar? Even the poop part? Oh God, the poop part. Yep, this guy. He did all the things he was accused of in real life, on screen, on a weekly television show, eventually even live. Not only did he get away with it, he won. He eventually bought and killed WCW. For almost 2 decades, he ran almost a complete monopoly until a weird billionaire son started throwing millions of dollars around to make his own company. And even then, AEW never negatively affected WWE's ability to make money, except by maybe perhaps raising the price that wrestlers could charge. So in the end, the bad guy won here.
You did it, sir.
I did it. He did it. He did it.
And Vince McMahon kept going. There was no end to the alleged horror stories about him, especially from women. Although, considering his obsession with oiled up, jacked up dudes, I wouldn't be surprised if there was possible abuse of men as well. There was even a case of a female wrestler allegedly getting assaulted by the US military and it getting covered up. But that's a story that was already hijacked from the family, so I'll leave it with them. The point is that Vince McMahon was going to get away with everything, hurting so many people, allegedly doing so many crimes, living the character of the evil boss. But then he made a mistake. He refused to pay his alleged victim a settlement. You see, the original reason that Vince McMahon was thrown out of power wasn't because of the alleged abuse. It was because of the alleged misuse of company funds. He was taking millions of dollars from the company to pay his alleged victims instead of using his own funds. Are you tired of hearing the word allegedly? Because I am. So Vince was forced to step down because he wouldn't use his own money to pay off the lawsuits against him. Except he didn't even do that. He refused to pay, got sued again, and have every possible detail of what happened revealed to the public. Because in all technicality, he broke the terms of the NDA he made the woman sign. So all bets were off. So not only was he evil, he was stupid in the end. Probably because his old ass brain was giving out on him.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Life sucks, and then you die.
And so Vince McMahon fell. He had won. He built up the biggest wrestling company to ever exist. He made billions of dollars. He got away with everything he ever wanted to do. Beat everyone into the ground, including his own family who didn't want him back in the company again. And then he sold WWE for absurd amounts of money, all to be outed because the egotistical maniac refused to pay the piper his due. Now that might seem cold. I obviously condemn everything Vince McMahon allegedly did. It's horrific. At the same time, I can't help but think that he would have rode off into the sunset if he didn't just go that one step too far, if he just paid what he promised. It sounds terrible, but people with money are going to get away with things. Everyone knows that this is the truth. And the weird thing is that all of this sounds like a wrestling storyline that Vince McMahon would actually write himself. The irony is thick here. The only person that could take down Vince McMahon was in fact Vince McMahon. It almost makes me wonder if he wanted this to happen. Did he subconsciously want to beat himself, or did he think that he was just so untouchable that he could get away with anything and everything? Now he's going to be persona non grata forever. WWE might never mention his name again. They might not even mention the last name McMahon ever again. After all, Vince's wife and children aren't in the company anymore. All footage of him might be hidden for a long time on television. If not, forever. He might very well be Chris Benoit, who is another interesting figure in WWE history. Benoit committed a double murder-suicide of his wife and son, so yeah, they don't bring him up anymore. Ever. And I bet the same thing will happen to the previous owner.
We do not speak his name.
I'm going to leave the legal issues to the courts. What truly fascinates me is the mixture of fiction and reality here. It was like Vince McMahon was telling on himself for years. Was it a secret cry to get people to stop him? Was it him bragging about his alleged evil deeds? Was it just him writing what he knew? You'd be surprised how quick artists are to tell on themselves. What people think about always comes out in their artistic endeavors. All I know is that Vince McMahon seems to have a perverted need for control and power. For whatever reason, I don't know. It probably stems from his unhappy childhood and the need to surpass a father who never acknowledged him, but I'm not a psychologist, so it's just some guy speculating here. And by finally pushing himself past the line, Vince McMahon has all the money in the world, but no one will ever work with him again. His name is now death in business and will be from now on, especially as the accusations and lawsuits grow. He's a workaholic with no business to run. He's a control freak without anyone to obey him. He's a man obsessed with his family and name, but without the love and admiration of his wife, children, or grandchildren. He's a genetic freak who will probably live another 20 years. After all, his mother lived past 100. He'll be slowly decaying until he's a husk in a bed with only the people he pays to take care of him and keep him company. And even then, he will have no control over them or even his own body or mind, until he just fades from existence as perhaps the most hated person to ever come out of his chosen profession. And the saddest part of it all is that's the least he deserves. If anything that has come out is even partially true, Vince McMahon needs to go to jail. You're welcome to disagree with me. That's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Right to jail, right away.
Hey, do you like stories about an interconnected world? Then consider giving my LP Shield books a try. They are all connected in some way, but you can jump in at any point, unless it's a series. Then you have to start at the beginning. But I got 3 books out right now and 3 coming next year. You will not have to wait long for content. Either way, thank you. I appreciate you. Do not despair.